Well, I think London has a really important role to play in the discussion about green and sustainable finance, and indeed about adaptation finance too. It's an extraordinarily important subject, but it's a very complicated one, and a big global issue, of course, that's facing everybody. So we were very much involved in supporting the financial services sector, the private sector, when we had the Glasgow COP26, getting the private sector engaged with that. And so we then decided that the best thing to do was to have a meeting that sat between COPs in the middle of the year and the end of May, here sponsored by the City of London Corporation, to monitor progress since the previous COP and to then also help to point to the goals of the next COP. So I think that's really the main focus of the Net Zero Delivery Summit, to draw on the experiences and the desires of the incumbent presidency of COP27, the Egyptians, and to work with the UAE in terms of setting up what they're expecting to achieve in COP28.
تحدثتم اليوم عن المبالغ الضخمة التي يحتاج إليها الاقتصاد العالمي لإنجاز هذا التحول نحو الاقتصاد الأخضر، تريليونات من الدولارات، وأهمية الشراكة ما بين القطاع الخاص وأيضا القطاع العام. فهل أنتم متفائلين فعليا أننا حققنا أو أنجزنا ما يكفي لنواصل هذا المسار الصحيح نحو إنجاز كل هذه الأهداف الطموحة؟
Look, people ask me about, what are the obstacles to funding the journey to net zero. I don't think that capital is really the inhibiting factor. The inhibiting factor is structuring how capital can be deployed in a way that's productive, not only in terms of meeting its environmental needs, but meeting the needs of the financial institutions that are providing it. So I think there is a really critical role to play in the private-public debate. And there have been a number of roundtables this morning looking at exactly that. What is the role of government? What's the role of multilateral development banks? How do we work together with the private sector? When you talk about infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure projects, big 20-year projects, you can split them up into different sectors. There's, the very early stages, there is a huge amount of thought that needs to go into it. There's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of due diligence, there's a lot of legal stuff. And though at that early stage, you need government sponsorship. As you move to the sort of the later stage, once you've got cash flows identified, that's easily funded with private capital. And then in the middle piece, that's where you need to look at blended capital. And that's where the multilateral development banks can play. That maybe is where private equity can play, where the insurance markets can play, particularly looking at sort of performance bonds. You might look at political risk insurance, because of course these are infrastructure projects that are going to happen all over the world.